They warned her not to travel with a human. Too unpredictable, too reckless. But Solari Vena, daughter of the Telari High Matriarch, never followed warnings. Especially not from politicians. She wanted to see the stars. What she got instead was a crash landing on a planet no one was supposed to survive. And him, Commander Jace Riven, human soldier, grumpy babysitter, and now her only hope of staying alive on the blazing wasteland of Araxis. The ship had been falling for 20 seconds before she realized Jace wasn't going to scream. He wasn't going to panic. He was going to fight the controls until they either landed or vaporized. Solari gripped the side rail as flames licked past the viewport. "We're too hot." Jace's voice was calm, deadly calm. "Then don't touch anything." "Are you even trying?" "Brace." The impact tore across the desert like a meteor strike. The transport screeched metal, shrieking fire, trailing behind it until it slammed into a sandstone ridge and stopped half-buried, broken, but somehow intact. Silence. Smoke. Then Jace's voice again. Low, steady. "You still breathing, princess?" She hated that nickname. Even more, she hated that he'd just saved her life. The airlock hissed open with a groan. Heat slapped her face like a furnace. Her boots crunched against the red sand, and the sun bore down like a hammer. Solari stepped out first, of course she did. Telari don't wait. They command. Her black armor shimmered in the sunlight, hugging every curve, ceremonial and combat-ready all at once. She knew how she looked, and so did the human, judging by the way his eyes lingered for half a second too long. "Told you to stay inside," he muttered. "Told you not to crash," she shot back. He almost smiled, almost, but the desert wasn't smiling. It was watching, waiting. And Solari, she was about to find out just how quickly arrogance becomes agony when you back into a cactus. Solari Vena did not scream. Even as her knees buckled and dozens of needle-thin spines sank deep into her skin, she clenched her teeth and held back the sound. But the pain, it wasn't just sharp. It was burning. White-hot, venomous. She had backed straight into a desert cactus that didn't just stab, it injected. The thorns pulsed as if alive, and blue fire seemed to spread from every puncture. Solari Jace was already running. "Don't move, you'll make it worse." "Don't tell me," she gasped, her legs trembling. "How to handle my—" She collapsed before finishing the sentence. Jace caught her before she hit the sand. She was lighter than expected, hot to the touch. Her armor shimmered faintly as his fingers brushed exposed skin, trying not to notice the way her breath caught at the contact. He laid her gently on a flat rock, his tone shifting from soldier to something softer. "Hey, stay awake." Her amber eyes met his glaze, but aware. "It burns." "Yeah, well, that's your pride cooking." She almost smiled. Almost. Within seconds, the symptoms accelerated. Blue-gray blotches spread under her skin. Her breath grew shallow. Her body began to shiver despite the oppressive heat. Jace pulled out the portable med scanner. The readout flared red. Toxic compound, unknown origin. Spread rapid. Organ response unstable. He cursed under his breath. There was no time to analyze, no time to wait. "I need to get you back inside. Now." Solari's vision blurred. The desert sky above her seemed to melt into 1,000 swirling galaxies. Voices echoed Jace's, her father's, hers. But none of it felt real anymore. Then she heard one thing clear as crystal. "You're not dying on me, princess." And for once she didn't fight him. Back in the ship, Jace laid her on the cot, arms tense with urgency. He prepped an emergency antitoxin, broad-spectrum Terran grade. Might work, might not. "You'll hate me if this stings," he muttered, pushing the injector to her neck. Her fingers gripped his wrist weakly. "Don't let me die out here, Commander." He looked at her, really looked. Not the snob, not the diplomat's daughter. Just her. "I won't." The injection hit. Her body arched once, then slumped. A fever bloomed across her skin. Sweat beaded at her brow. Her lips trembled as she whispered something in Telari dialect, something he didn't understand but felt like a plea. Jace didn't leave her side. Not for hours. Outside, the desert howled as the wind picked up. A storm was coming, but the real storm was already inside the ship. And it had nothing to do with weather. The stars were singing. Selari floated in a sky of silver and blue, her body weightless, her mind drifting between memory and invention. Selari Sunana. The voice was warm, familiar, not Jace's, her father's. Ambassador Vena stood atop a marble staircase dressed in ceremonial black. His eyes were cold, always cold. You were born for duty, not desire. She turned away, but the stars pulled her deeper. And suddenly, he wasn't there. She stood in a garden of glass trees. In front of her, a younger version of herself, maybe 10 years old, reached for a bird made of starlight. It shattered in her hand. She cried, and no one comforted her. They made you strong, said another voice. This time it was Jace. But not quite him, a dream Jace. Shirtless, his dog tags glinting, standing barefoot in the sand as stars fell behind him. He stepped closer. But they didn't teach you how to feel. She stared at him. I don't need to feel. I need to survive. Then why are you here? His hand rose, brushed her cheek. Her skin burned at the contact, but not from the fever. From something deeper. He kissed her in the dream. And in that moment, her walls cracked. Not shattered. Just enough for something to escape. Primitive, she whispered. Humans are so primitive in your passions. Maybe, Jace murmured. But we're free. You're not. She couldn't deny it. Her body moved toward him, not in logic, not in diplomacy, but in longing. Her people had arranged partners for centuries, measured bloodlines, assigned pleasure by compatibility algorithms. But what she felt now wasn't assigned. The dream collapsed. The world burned to black. And Solari jolted awake on the cot, sweating, gasping, alive, and changed. She turned her head. Jace sat slumped beside her, one hand still gripping the scanner, the other curled protectively near her leg, asleep in the chair, exhausted. She studied him in silence, the scar on his jaw, the way his fingers twitched even in sleep like a man who could never truly let go. Jace, she whispered. He stirred instantly, a soldier's reflex, eyes locked on hers. Alive, present. Welcome back, he said softly. She didn't smile, but her fingers brushed his, and she didn't pull them away. The wind outside howled like a dying god. Sand lashed the hull in relentless waves, scraping across the exterior of the Hermia, like claws on bone. Inside, the temperature plummeted. Life support was barely hanging on. Commander Jace Riven crouched beneath a half-open control panel, reconnecting power conduits with half-frozen fingers. Behind him, Solari Vena sat quietly wrapped in a thermal blanket, eyes distant but no longer dazed. Something in her had shifted. The silence between them wasn't empty. It was waiting. What about you, she asked softly. You carry yourself like someone who's lost something. Jace paused, knuckles resting on the panel edge. Really in conflict, he said at last. 12 soldiers under my command, ambushed. I was the only one who made it out. Solari's gaze lowered. Then wordlessly, she covered his hand with hers. I'm sorry. He didn't answer. Didn't pull away either. Minutes passed. The storm intensified. Their breath was visible now, rising in slow white clouds. She shifted, moving closer. In Tani culture, she said quietly, we don't touch casually. I've noticed, Jace muttered. This kind of contact, she continued, her fingers brushing his chest, is reserved for family. Or bonded mates. Jace blinked. Wait, hold on. What are you saying? Solari turned toward him. The cactus venom didn't just poison me. It triggered something biological, a cycle. A mating cycle, she said. And if a Talari bonds during that cycle, it's permanent. The words landed like a drop of water on an open flame. Jace stood slow and deliberate. Permanent how? Physiological, emotional, neural, she said. My people don't date, Commander. We bind. She pulled the blanket tighter. And I didn't choose this. But my body did. Jace looked away, jaw tightening. This wasn't protocol. This wasn't mission. This was something real. So what happens now, he asked. Now Solari smiled faintly. You either accept the bond, or we spend the next several days in this ship pretending you didn't save my life. She stood slowly, the blanket falling just enough to reveal the elegant lines of her armor, beneath half-removed, more intimate than bare skin. But the bond won't wait. I'm not asking for love, Jace. I'm asking if you'll face what this means. He stepped closer. The wind screamed louder outside. But inside it was still. I don't care what your biology says, he said quietly. I don't need tradition to tell me what I already feel. I choose this. Solari's eyes shimmered not with pride, not with conquest, but with something softer and infinitely more dangerous. Trust. The storm outside would last another 16 hours. Inside, they would weather something far stronger. Together. The storm broke at dawn. Thin sunlight sliced through the haze, casting long, jagged shadows across the sand-scarred hull of the Hermes. Jace stood near the ramp, scanning the horizon. Anything Solari asked, pulling on the last of her armor. He didn't answer immediately. Then, Iwanwanhandu, ship, 12 clicks, coming fast. Solari's throat tightened. She already knew whose ship it was. 15 minutes later, the dust parted to reveal a sleek obsidian cruiser with Talari diplomatic markings imposing ceremonial, unmistakable. And stepping down its ramp, flanked by honor guards in reflective armor, Ambassador Vena, Solari's father. His eyes locked on hers, not warmth, not relief, just judgment. You're alive, he said simply. Solari stood tall, thanks to him. Vena's gaze shifted to Jace and narrowed. Human, you fulfilled your duty. You may step aside. Jace didn't move. She's not cargo, he said calmly. I don't step aside. The honor guards shifted hands on hilts. The air grew cold despite the desert heat. Solari stepped forward. Under Tani law, I have bonded. A murmur passed through the guards. Vena's mask cracked for a breath. Impossible. It's been verified. The cactus toxin triggered the mating cycle. We completed it. You bonded with a Terran. His voice now trembled, not with fear, but fury. I chose him, she said simply. And my body did too. Your body is a political asset, he snapped. Not a vessel for primitive indulgence. Then maybe it's time I stop being an asset, she shot back. You raised me to serve tradition, father. But he taught me how to choose. Vena turned to Jace. Do you have any idea the diplomatic chaos you've unleashed? Jace met his gaze without blinking. She's not a diplomatic channel. She's a person. And if I have to stand trial for treating her like one, so be it. The ambassador's voice dropped. Then you'll submit to Talari law, the right of valor, to prove you're worthy of her, or die trying. Solari's eyes widened. Father, no. It is tradition, he said coldly. You invoked the bond. Now pay the price. Jace stepped forward without hesitation. Name the trials. Vena studied him. 3, mind, body, spirit. You won't survive them. Then I'll be the first Terran who does. Solari grabbed Jace's arm as the guards moved to take him. You don't have to do this. He leaned close, voice low. This isn't about proving myself to him. It's about proving something to you. She didn't answer. But when they pulled him away, she reached out and didn't let go until the last second. The chamber was carved into the heart of a desert cliff older than any Talari record, pulsing faintly with residual psychic energy. Runes along the wall shimmered in colors that didn't exist on any spectrum Jace recognized. What do I do, he asked. The elder Talari merely gestured to the center. Sit, place your hands upon the stone. The trial will begin. Jace glanced up. Solari stood on the upper terrace, fists clenched, her expression unreadable. He took a breath, then knelt. The moment his palms touched the stone, the world changed. No sound, no sensation, just darkness, then light, and a voice. Jace. He turned and saw them, his squad, the 12 he lost at Relian Ridge. Alive, smiling. Took you long enough, Commander, said Mace, his second in command. Thought you'd never wake up, said Lena, the youngest. Jace stumbled back. You're not real. The world pulsed. Aren't we? They asked, stepping closer. Or are you just tired of pretending you don't want us back? The world shifted again. He stood in the command chamber of the Hermes, Solari in his arms, her voice soft. Stay here, just us. You don't have to fight anymore. Her armor was gone. She wore a simple wrap. Her eyes were warmer than he'd ever seen. No missions, no war, just peace. Jace hesitated. This was everything he never admitted he wanted. But something was wrong. You're not her, he said. The illusion flickered. Solari's eyes glowed red. Pity, the false image whispered. You would have been happy. Jace stepped back. Happy isn't the same as real. The chamber trembled. The illusions crumbled. And now he stood alone. A mirror before him, His own face stared back. But not him. Not anymore. You killed them, the reflection said. You gave the order that got them slaughtered. You bonded with an alien you barely know. You're not a soldier, you're just tired. Jace clenched his fists. You're right, he said. I am tired. But I'd rather bleed for what's real than sleep forever in a lie. He punched the mirror. It shattered into dust. Silence. Then light. The runes pulsed once, the chamber faded, reality returned. Jace gasped. Still kneeling, still alive. The elder stepped forward. You did not fight your mind. You listened to it, then chose. Trial of the mind passed. Above Solari's breath caught in her throat. He looked up at her. No words, just a glance. But it said everything. I came back. The arena was carved into living rock, circular, silent, and surrounded by sandstone cliffs that captured every whisper of wind and heartbeat of tension. 3 Talari warriors stood at the opposite end, each over 6 feet tall, muscle-bound and bred for close-quarters combat. Their ceremonial blades glowed faintly violet light, but deadly. Jace Riven stood alone, unarmed, bare-chested, and very, very human. From the viewing platform above, Solari gripped the rail, her nails white against the stone. This is madness, she whispered. He's not like them. The presiding judge raised a ceremonial staff. Begin. The first warrior lunged fast, brutal. Jace dodged. Barely. The blade sliced his shoulder, leaving a searing red line. Pain flared, but he didn't fall. He grinned instead. All right, he muttered. So that's how it's gonna be. They came at him like a pack. One from the front, one flanking, one leaping from behind. Jace dropped to the ground. Rolled. Grabbed a fistful of sand and flung it into the nearest warrior's face. Blinded, the Talari stumbled. Jace used him as cover, twisting the second's blade arm, redirecting the swing into the third. Sparks flew. The crowd gasped. This wasn't finesse. This wasn't training. It was adaptation, improvisation, human chaos. He couldn't match their strength, but he didn't have to. He just had to last. He ducked under a high strike, slammed his elbow into a rib, kicked off a wall and tackled one warrior from behind, driving him into the sand. Blood ran from his lip. His ribs screamed, but he stayed on his feet. One warrior down. The remaining 2 circled him, now more cautious. Jace exhaled, spitting blood into the dust. Come on, he growled, let's dance. They attacked in unison. This time he didn't dodge. He closed the distance. Let the blade graze his side and used the opening to drive his forehead into one's faceplate. Metal cracked. The Talari dropped. The last warrior hesitated. Just a moment. But it was enough. Jace twisted the blade from his fallen foe's hand and pointed it at the final challenger. Not to strike. Just to offer it. Your move, he said. The Talari looked at the blade. Then at Jace, and knelt. Above silence reigned. Then the elder judge spoke. He has endured pain without surrender. He has turned weakness into advantage. And he has offered mercy in the heat of combat. Trial of the body passed. Solari exhaled a breath she didn't realize she'd held. He looked up at her from the arena floor, bruised, bleeding, and grinning. Still not dead, he called. She smiled through tears. Not yet. No arena. No opponents. Just a circular chamber lit by crystal light and silence so deep Jace could hear his own heartbeat echoing. The judge stood at the threshold, not entering. This is not a place of war, Commander Riven, he said. It is a place of truth. Place your hand on the soul core and do not lie. Jace stepped forward. The soul core hovered midair, an orb of pulsating blue light. He reached out, touched it, and the world stopped. He stood inside a simulation of his own memories, but not passive. They pulled him through. First childhood, a boy in a dark alley clutching a broken locket. Mother dead. Father vanished. Cold, alone. Soulcore whispered, what did you learn? That no one comes unless you make them. Next war. Flashes of explosions, screams, blood in 0G, 12 men and women under his command, all gone. The Soulcore pressed deeper. What did you lose? Everything I thought made me worth following. Then Solari. Her voice, her fire, her refusal to kneel, her lips trembling in pain, her eyes softening in the dark. "What did you find?" Jay swallowed. "Something I wasn't supposed to. Hope." The scene shifted. Now, a choice. Two doors. One led back to Earth. Rank, redemption. Orders. The other to Solari. The unknown, alien love, risk, rebellion. And standing between them, his own reflection. If you follow her, it warned you lose everything that made you a soldier. Jay stepped forward. "Then maybe it's time I stop being a soldier." He passed through the second door. The light faded. He was back in the chamber, gasping, alone. And then not alone. Solari stood before him. Not an illusion, not a test. Just her, waiting. The elder's voice came from the shadows. Trial of the spirit passed. He is no longer only human. He is something else now. Something chosen. Solari stepped forward. Her hand found his. No words, but 1,000 truths passed between their fingers. Far above in the high council chamber, her father watched in silence. He said nothing, but his clenched jaw spoke volumes. The human had passed. Now the question was, could the Talari accept what that meant? The capital of Araxis shimmered like a dagger in the desert sun. Jace had seen cities rise and fall, but nothing like this, a living monument to control. Stone walls pulsed with power. Guards moved with precision. Protocol suffocated the air. Solari walked beside him in full ceremonial robes. Dignified, glorious, and unbreakable. "I have to face them alone," she whispered. "Like hell you do," he muttered back. Inside the Grand Hall, Ambassador Vena stood flanked by high-ranking officials and the family of Solari's intended mate, Lord Vayan, expression frozen in practiced offense. The crowd parted like a living tide. Solari stepped forward. "According to Talari law, the right of valor is complete. My bond stands, my choice stands." "He stands." She turned, and Jace stepped forward, every bruise and scar worn like armor. A council elder rose. "Commander Riven, do you understand what your presence here means?" "Yeah," he said flatly. "Means I passed your games. Now you either accept me or start another war." Vena's voice cut through the silence. "This bond shatters generations of arrangement, of balance." Solari lifted her chin. "Then maybe balance needs to be broken. Because I'd rather build something new than uphold something empty," the nobles murmured. Vayan stepped forward, trembling with quiet rage. "You think he'll survive in our world?" "He already did," Solari snapped. "When every blade was turned against him." Jace said nothing. He didn't have to. He just reached over and rested his hand gently over hers. Over the curve of her stomach, the gesture said it all. The elder counselor stood. "So be it. The bond is recognized. Not because it is convenient, but because it is undeniable." Solari exhaled. For the first time in her life, she was heard. And beside her stood a man who had never asked for her, never demanded her, never controlled her. He had simply stood with her, and that had changed everything. Outside, the people watched as they emerged onto the palace steps. Human and Talari, soldier and daughter, warrior and womb, united. "What now?" he whispered. Solari smiled. "Now, Onum, Tirana Shiberthanas, we build a future that scares them.